you have to have that authenticity, which a lot of people talk about, but how do you actually do that from a communication standpoint? It's telling your story. People have to have something to relate to in order for them to care, like know, like, and trust.
From humble beginnings, Insurance Claim HQ has grown to one of the largest property casualty firms in the country. We didn't do it alone, and you shouldn't either. Every week, we're talking to claims professionals and top experts from all over, all to help you grow your business and make you stronger. Let's level up together. I'm Galen Hair. Welcome to the Level Up Claims Podcast. Most business owners are great at what they do, but struggle to explain it in a way that builds trust at scale. Being invisible is a real liability. Today's guest, Austin Holmes, helps entrepreneurs turn their story into an asset. As the CEO of Signal Raptor and president of Publicity for Good, Austin is redefining how PR works, making it more transparent, predictable, and actually useful for growing businesses. From naval special operations to scaling a 7-figure PR agency, Austin brings a practical, no-fluff perspective on how earned media can help business owners stand out and grow. Let's hear from Austin Holmes. Austin, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to be here. Good to be on this side of the camera.
Yeah, you know, it's a different experience both ways. When we first started doing this, I was like, this is weird. Now when I do someone else's podcast, it feels weird. So it just kind of depends. So before we jump into it, though, I feel like we've got to cover your background because it struck me that your time in the military really shaped your approach to both leadership and communication. So talk to us about kind of what got you into communication within the military and, you know, walk us through kind of how that led you into your professional life today.
Yeah, so the shortcut there for communications directly was meeting my wife before I had even exited the military. And my degree is in business management and entrepreneurship. So like that was always on my radar as like a possibility of going the entrepreneurship route. Met her, she had already established Publicity for Good, but it was like 3 people at that point. And you know, to fast forward real quickly, we're now at a team of 65. So we've done a lot in the team building leadership since then. Leadership for me actually goes back to high school. I had the privilege of being on an amazing team with amazing coaches, and I think our class had like 21 people go D1, and it was just one state championship. So like that was a learning experience, and it was the first experience I had with like high level teams. And I went off to college and didn't have that. So I missed it a tremendous amount. And I intentionally looked at towards the end of school at the best teams in the military. I completely had the choice of going in or not. Like it was like half the guys in my family have been military, half haven't. So like it wasn't a pressure situation either way, but I wanted to be a part of an excellent team again. And I learned so much. I had so many good examples in the military of leadership. Guys who have been at the highest level in that as a part of our community. And, you know, I absolutely was not a good leader when I started. I had a lot of lessons to learn. And luckily, I've been able to level up my leadership through the years. And a lot of that has been on the business side.
Wow. And I mean, on the business side, it's grown like crazy. So for you then, if I'm understanding this correctly, like it was very, very important to you to be on a winning team, be on a team that functioned well, that communicated
Absolutely.
well from the outside. And sounds like it's been that way for you since like 17 years old, basically, that you've wanted that.
Yeah. That was definitely my first like very obvious life example of it. And s- I've striven, I don't know, strove for being an excellent leader since then. And I don't think I understood what that meant until I had to start training other people to be good leaders. Of course, there's all the books out there. There's so many things, uh, like mentorship being a massive part of it that you can use to develop your leadership skills. But when you start training other leaders, the intentionality behind it has to be so clear. And I think, you know, it's compared in other things of like when you're teaching somebody to do something, that's when mastery comes.
I could not agree more. So let's talk about kind of PR and storytelling as we kind of transition into this
Mhm.
topic a little bit. So it strikes me that today, the world we live in, we are just getting hit all over the place with information. It's on our phones, it's on our computers. Every time we change apps, we get new information. Then we get a
Mhm.
notification begging us to go back to something else to do something else. And then everywhere we go, we're getting information. So why does storytelling matter at all in such a noisy world?
Well, it's become that much more powerful with AI dominating on the communications front, just from a volume standpoint. You used to be able to go on social and, just post more than everybody else and you'd win eventually. Like, and obviously there's the evaluation, like getting better over time. But you used to be able to do that now because there's so much competition with people able to create 10 posts a day in 30 seconds. You have to have that authenticity, which a lot of people talk about, but how do you actually do that from a communication standpoint? It's telling your story. People have to have something to relate to in order for them to care, like know, like, and trust. That comes through the relatability, and that comes from you being authentic, telling your story, and crafting a story around whether it's product or service that you're providing. Crafting that story is why people are gonna care about your product, and that's the separator between the 1,000 posts that you're fighting against on AI-generated stuff and your unique proposition.
Yeah. And that's a whole thing, right? AI is really, really changing marketing. I don't know if it's
Mm,
changing it. I think it's increasing the volume of it or
right.
the quantity. I don't think it's making it better necessarily. It might get there. The one thing it's doing right is it's doing A/B testing in a more efficient way than we've ever been able to do, right?
Yeah.
It's running sometimes multiple A/B tests in an hour where that used to be pretty human dependent. But other than that, yeah, you're right. It's just noise. So with our listeners, mainly contractors, claims professionals, public adjusters, even some law firms. How does storytelling apply to them in a way that it could make them stand out either locally or nationally?
Well, a great approach for a lot of these service businesses is sharing the stories of their, customer, and that's gonna be that relatability of like, "Hey, I have worked with thousands of people who are in your shoes," and getting into the specific stories so that people can key on something that relates to them. And, that's gonna be different for everybody, but we need the system to then provide the answer. Hero's journey is a great model for this. We're not there to be the hero. We're there to help somebody along their hero's journey. And when you're trying to help somebody, like I mean, I've dealt with most of the industries that you just listed, and we're looking for a solution when we're on the other side. So having that solution ready to go, having something that's clear that you can communicate, this is the pathway that we're going to walk you down, and then this is how we start that pathway. So that's a lot of that discussion. And if you preface some of those steps so that expectations are set early on in your communication, that's a powerful way to then take somebody from that relatability element to getting on the pathway to working with you.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. And we're gonna stay on PR for a bit, but I want to kind of take a quick segue because one of your stories that I would be remiss to not ask about, our listeners would be mad, is you 15x'd your company. Um,
Something like that.
Almost exactly. You actually did a little bit better than that. By the last numbers I found, it might be better now. So, what do you attribute to that success? How do you think you did it?
A massive part of it for us was getting help. Uh, mentorship, like I talked about earlier. We've worked with multiple people over the years, and a huge part of what we've gotten from those programs, masterminds, individual coaching is frameworks, ways of thinking about whatever it is we're doing. Hiring is one of the things I did very early on in the business, and now our hiring framework is super well established. Clear process and procedure, and even that I know there's infinite ways to make it better and more scalable and more duplicatable. So finding people who already know what you need to do. I think Cody Sanchez has a great quote around this of, getting in the room with people who are ahead of you, they can see your future. And I fully believe in that. So finding somebody who's already walked the path that you're trying to walk 2, 3, 4 steps ahead, they're going to be able to predict what you need to do next. So mentorship combined with the systems that can come from some of those programs is super powerful.
There will be some people that will be sitting at home, public adjusters and contractors especially, who will say that it's impossible to grow your company like that, for them at least, because the competing needs between their family, number one, needing to be at home,
Mhm.
and then B, the transient nature of storm restoration work, how it's kind of disaster and storm chase based, right? They're on the road all the time. It strikes me that there's an interesting component to your story, which, as I understand, at least some of this growth occurred while A, raising 3 young children in an Airstream. Is that right?
Yeah, so we had the Airstream first, and we were traveling all across the world at first, and then COVID happened, so we limited to just the United States, which is an interesting story itself. But, you can absolutely build a business on the road. It is challenging being away from family and, but we have 3 kids and 1 on the way. And I can tell you, if you don't have systems in place, it does become hectic because both my wife and myself work in the business full time. And so we have to be very intentional with our time. Uh, it means rather than waiting to get to the office to make the phone call, you might need to make the phone call while you're in the car. And I know from actually, side note, both my wife and I have done our life, health, and variable annuity licenses in a previous life. And so, like, I do understand it from that perspective as well. But get somebody to help you. Like, so many of the things that we think only we can do, we can pass off. And, Tim Ferriss's book, 4 Hour Work Week, is a great place to start with that. Like, hey, how do you hand off your email so you're spending 5 minutes a day on your email instead of like 2 hours? There's a lot of systems in that book. So even though it's a little older, still really good systems.
Yeah, it
Um,
still works, right?
I look at it too from I can do at least half of what anybody else can do. That's a mantra I've had for a long, long time. And, you look at what somebody else has accomplished and say, even if it's only half, I can do that. And when you put it in those terms, like a lot of the excuses go away.
Yeah, makes sense. One of your companies is Signal Raptor, right?
Yeah. So
And
the software side.
yeah, go ahead. But I understood that one of the things that kind of came, one of the reasons it came about is you were a little frustrated with traditional PR models. And
Mhm.
so, what frustrated you about traditional PR?
Well, it's an expensive proposition. Nobody likes lawyers. No offense
Thanks.
to the lawyers listening, uh, but uh, that's obviously something everybody's heard. And the reason is it's expensive. It takes time, and you're paying for somebody's relationships, their time, and their knowledge base. And that is worth paying for, but not everybody's capable of doing that. And that model applies to a lot of traditional PR. So we wanted to create something because we heard those objections on sales calls all the time. We wanted to create something where somebody could start, where they could get in the game, they get the attention that is so critical today, especially with all of the noise, and set themselves up to take the next steps. It I mean, you could almost compare it to, like, LegalZoom. LegalZoom helping with some of those basic things like power of attorney, cool. Let's get this solved so that people can progress because, the service is needed when somebody takes it to the next level.
Mm.
Talking about level up, like, there are ways to level up PR, and we wanted to provide that product for everybody who wanted their voice heard, and, for me, it is about having more people's voices out there. Uh, Even though that's part of the noise, it's better than having 3 voices out there where you have limited information and you don't have access to the ideas. I think in a marketplace of ideas, the good ideas win. So yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
reasons to start Raptor.
No, that makes sense. And what is this concept? I read about this and I was surprised. What is hope based PR?
You can't just hope that PR is gonna land on your doorstep. Like,
Mm,
you're
gotcha.
competing on the media outlet side for, like, any producer, they're gonna have 100, 300, 500 requests a day, and so you hoping that somebody picks up your story because you have a good story is not the way to go. Like, you have to be intentional. Whether that's the simple thing of ChatGPTing your local news station and getting the emails and sending them an email, all the way up to, like, a full-scale PR service. Like, you have to make that effort intentional because they're not just gonna find your story. It's part of the noise thing. Yeah.
That makes sense. So what are and kind of related then, I guess on the flip side, what are guaranteed placements? What does that actually mean?
Yeah, we guarantee media opportunities for our clients because we know how good we are at getting them, and that comes from relationships, experience, process, procedure. A lot of the industry, when they're talking about guaranteed placements, that's gonna be a paid opportunity, which is advertising. They're out there. Like, you can go to Forbes and certain writers, and you can pay $6,500 and get a feature on Forbes. But we focused on the earned side of PR, and that's critical in, especially now the LLM models are heavily focusing on earned media opportunities. They're focusing on third-party validation and Reddit. Reddit's a powerful one that you can start very early on, controlling that conversation. Like, "Hey, who's the best, uh, insurance broker in Nebraska?" Like, controlling that specific conversation and being a part of that discussion is gonna elevate your name, not just on Reddit when people are actually searching there, but it's gonna elevate it on the LLMs as well.
Interesting. That's amazing insight right there, right? Like, guys, if you weren't listening to that, that you whiffed big time. Because everyone's all worried about the AI advertising as the next thing, right? And until they start putting paid ads at the top of our queries, that's the way to get there. Although I'm
Yeah,
sure that's
that
coming.
that is coming. We just had that discussion too. It's already there on the product side. ChatGPT has the buy button, but they're adding services very soon, which
Yeah.
is gonna be a wild turn.
Yeah. I mean, I saw the buy button start to come, right? I asked it to help me plan a Christmas outfit or something. And it offered to immediately direct me to be able to purchase those things, which is wild. All right. Let's talk about kind of the compare framework that
Yep.
you developed. What is it and why did you come up with it?
So, like, all these things that we've been talking about are communications. But, like, when you say, "Hey, make sure your communications are good for your business," that doesn't help people a whole lot. I like breaking things down, and the compare framework is, "Hey, this is everything that you can do from your brand standpoint to communicate to the world." And that's, for us, we always relate it to, like, our clients, media members, our team members. So, compare breaks down in a lot of ways all of the different things that you can do as a business to communicate. The first one, C, is content. That's going to be what we talked about earlier. Like, you do have to be putting out content, otherwise there's nothing for somebody to see. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. Obviously, social is a part of it. And, there's also the balance between video on social and static posts. People have success with both, but the best is to find a balance. And Meta constantly is changing the recommendation here, but you guys can go chat GPT that. Articles, articles, blog posts, the written long form stuff is another part of that LLM search. It's also what people are going to find when they're researching, should I work with this business? They're going to see what you posted. I know constantly on interviews, people are bringing up blog posts from 6 years ago on our website. I'm like, oh, I forgot we did that. But people will, when they're deep diving you, in that bottom of funnel, they'll deep dive into your stuff. They'll deep dive into your social. And so you need to have the content there to provide that confidence for somebody to work with you. Outbound is the next one. So, the content is a lot about people finding you, finding out more about you. Outbound, you got to reach out to somebody. And again, there's a bunch of different ways to do this. On the media side, we reach out to the media constantly for our clients to try and get that attention because all of communications is about getting attention and sharing your message. Um, and so, reaching out, whether that's partnering with influencers or reaching out via email, a lot of people do a newsletter. Those outbound communication efforts help continue to build that relationship. And, for us, it's all about building a community. It's not just, hey, let's build a following. We want to actually build people who are engaged. Um, Media is the next one. already touched on this a little bit earlier as well of media is still the powerful third-party validation because it's a limited resource. There's only so many outlets, there's only so many opportunities, there's only so many 3-minute segments. And while the world of media has gotten a lot bigger with new media, as we call it, podcasts, all of the new article sites, YouTube, like there's a lot of new opportunities, but those top tier ones are still just as valid because it's a limited. So getting on your local news station to talk about whatever relevant industry topics are going on, they're actually looking for that. They want the expert to come in. They want the lawyer to talk about whatever bill just passed. They want the finance guy to come talk about end of year taxes. Um, so finding those opportunities about a month beforehand is a good time frame. Platform. So picking the right platforms, being omnipresent is a huge part of this. Uh, and this is to make sure that when people search for you, they're able to find you on the platform of their choice.
Mm,
So even if it's not your main channel, like content can be produced for a lot of different channels. Put it there. Like have the secondary channels. Rumble being the secondary to YouTube, uh, Threads being the secondary to X. Having this across every platform is super important. And then you have to have your own platform. And you can use other people's too, but having a podcast, that's a great platform. Just your website, treating that as a content platform. Um, Having a platform where people can find out more about you, where you can communicate messages to your community. School is another one that's kind of up and coming. That's another platform. They and, all of these things can be separated in multiple categories. Peso is a great model that we use in the PR industry of paid, earned, social, and organic, or owned, not organic. And that's a good way to approach each one of these items. Advertising is a huge one. I know this crowd likes to advertise. So it's powerful. I mean, it's one of the ones that is scalable based on budget. And when you run out of time doing a lot of these other things, budget is your tool to leverage. And you have to do the same amount of work, but you can increase your ad spend or just go to multiple platforms on your advertising. One of the coolest things that I think so many people don't even know about is native advertising. It's actually being advertised more, like going on Roku. You can get targeted ads on Roku to your market, and they have more data than the traditional news stations do. Uh, and so there's a lot of opportunities for native advertising. It's a little bit more work to set up all of these platforms, but yeah, it can definitely apply to from some of the legal holdups that people have. Like there's certain industries that can't advertise on Meta. Like look into native ad platforms. Relationships is the R in compare, and this is a critical thing. You want your focus through your messaging to build a relationship with somebody, to build that know, like, and trust factor, and make sure you're communicating with everybody you need to. Stakeholders is another kind of name for it. Like, are you communicating with the media when you have an event? Press release is an easy way to do that. Are you communicating with people in your community? Are you communicating with your suppliers? Building relationships across the board then is an excellent opportunity to drive referrals. Um, and, relationship is a huge topic. There's great books about that as well. The last one is engagement. So it's building that community and then engaging with them, not just sitting back in your office, making your same video every day, but actually taking part in community events, taking part on social and giving people answers there. The Reddit discussion that was earlier, that's part of engagement and making sure that you have your voice out there, not just the content. Actually interacting with people helps build those relationships, helps drive everything forward. So that's the short version of compare.
No, yeah, and that was abbreviated too, but there's so much in there to unpack. I don't know that we'll
Mhm.
have time to do it. Let's do a couple of little things though. So you talked about earned media earlier, and then you kind of, like intimated it a little bit and compare, but you also mentioned influencers.
Mhm.
Talk to me like so earned media versus influencers versus ads. Like where do influencers fit into this?
Yeah, so influencers can be earned or paid. It kind of depends on the methodology. If you're doing paid influencers, there's great platforms out there. We use a couple of them. Heapsy is a very moderately priced one. And you just do reach outs. A lot of them have pricing terms on these platforms. And, it depending on who they are, you wanna find influencers who are gonna make an impact based on who your avatar is. Like, identify the influencer based on who you're trying to reach, not necessarily the influencer themselves. Um, because some of them have great numbers, but they don't have the engagement piece. So you wanna find somebody who's actually gonna help you get to your goals if you're paying for influencers. If it's on the earn side, it's about building that relationship with somebody who maybe already uses your product or service. And having them be an advocate for your brand is more powerful than anything else because somebody who has a relationship with, let's say, call them an influencer in their personal life, even if they have 2,000 followers, if somebody is recommending you or your brand to their audience, that is more powerful than even top tier media.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, because they're coming from a real place, and I guess I guess their followers can tell that, huh? They can tell the difference between a,
Mhm.
this post is sponsored by so and so to, hey, y'all, I want to tell you about like my lawyer that really took care of me when I needed it.
Yeah. And so much of that is nurturing those relationships in order to drive that forward. Another kind of it's still organic, but not quite so much, is find people in your local community who are in parallel services. So for us, like an easy target to work with is marketing agencies. So we have several relationships in the CPG world, which is a large part of who we work with. And we do events with them. We do webinars with them. Do co-posts. Say we doing a meetup at one of the trade shows we're going to. We'll have a lunch or a dinner with somebody else and bring in both sets so that we're bringing both of our communities together and each have the opportunity to grow that community.
Oh, that's awesome. So, with AI kind of changing, because we talked about this at the very beginning, with AI changing so much, what pivots do you think you're going to have to make over the next several years?
Yeah, we've already made a bunch. I'm kind of a nerd, so I was on the AI train pretty early. The huge one that is the low hanging fruit is making sure all of your profile information is updated because you want when the crawlers on the LLMs go and find your information, you want that information to be accurate. So making sure that whatever review sites you're on, whether it's Yelp or if there's an industry specific one for us, that's Clutch, making sure your Google business profile is updated. That's a key thing. And that's constant, making sure that's updated, making sure that your story and messaging on there is speaking to the pain points because it's no longer just like keyword based. It's speaking to the pain points of the problem you're trying to solve because that's the question that people are putting in the chat. They're asking, how do I solve this problem? Or who's the best person to solve this problem? And so you want your name to come up next to that problem when people are performing these searches. And there's a whole process for doing that, but that's more on my wife's area. So.
No, then it's a lot anyway. Austin, you've been so generous, and we're pretty much out of time. So before you do go, though, I have to ask you, what does it mean to you to level up?
Oh, I knew this was coming and I still need to think about it.
It's the
Le
pressure.
yeah, leveling up is never resting on what you think you've accomplished. Um, Always trying to grow. That's one of our core pillars in our business and our life. There's always somewhere to get better and seeking out the knowledge to level up. That process is a huge part of what actually takes you to the next level, is growing into who you want to become. So leveling up is almost never giving up for me.
I love that. Austin, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, it's been awesome.
I'd like to thank Austin Holmes for joining us on the podcast. His no BS approach to PR, laying out the entire compare framework, was awesome and super helpful. So, if you're having PR issues, kind of follow his compare framework and compare those things like earned media, influencers, and ads, and take your PR up to the next level. Follow us on Apple, Spotify, or your favorite podcast player, and make sure you like and subscribe to keep up to date on our latest podcasts.